Hello, and welcome to the first episode, the other one being the lost episode, which I'll probably end up bringing over to this channel too, is the .5 episode or something. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do with it, but first little thing, I've got this much built already. The reason that is because both first bag that I did, it cut out recording after about 6 minutes, and I lost the rest of the footage, so I did everybody's question, and I built the first bag, and then it went on. Realized I had not gotten basically any of it, 45 minutes probably, and 6 minutes recorded, and then decided to restart the phone, do the stuff, set up it again, and do it again, and use my phone to tell me if I'm doing things properly, and decided to start once again, answered all the questions, built bag 2, and then realized it stopped after about 25 minutes. So now I've flipped it around. I'm doing selfie side so I can watch the red button. I just gotta make sure it's here. And I'm gonna build bag 3 and answer people's questions. Hopefully we are hopefully we're all set now. And this is what we've got so far, which is, pretty cool. So, let's empty bag 3. Oh wait, sorry, I was doing this the whole time before. Terrible throw. Pretty good, didn't work. Open micro bag 3. I'm not sure. I guess because, I don't know. Oh, and there's even more micro bag. If there's a weird whistling sound that you hear, you're going to have to ignore it. I don't know what the hell it is. It's somewhere in the building, and it happens during the winter for some reason. It's part of its charm. Okay, so as I start, I'm going to build really quickly Iron Man and basically say thank you for everybody who sent in their questions. It's appreciated. Hopefully I'll get some more participation in the future. And I was even going to say, like, people can ask questions about anything. I mean, literally anything. And if I don't know the answer to it, I'll just go look it up, I guess. Because I think having something to talk about is going to be pretty crucial to doing this, as a regular human being only has so much to say before they are just rambling on about nothing, and things and stuff and deals like now. So I am gonna hopefully be able to go. Oh, this is this is what's his name? It's not Iron Man. It's gonna be Rhodey inside, not obviously Iron Man. This is the, why am I forgetting his name? This is one of the worst parts. This is not even a question, but one of the biggest problems I have with it is unbelievable amount of forgetfulness I have at this point. Keep wanting to say Ironmonger, and that's not his name. It's Rhodey, and he is in. Jeez, oh my god! I'm such a comic book geek, as you can probably tell by that, and you can't see that one, but just thousands of comics that I have and so forth. And I don't know why I can't remember his name right now, but I can't, and that's my life in a nutshell. So we'll start with question 1, which was submitted by Morgan, at Diejerks, Diejerks. Is it painful? Do you have pain medication or anything like that? No, it's not. For the most part, you're pretty well just drained of any stamina, but that's really about it. There's not much else to it other than that. The only real medication I've been taking is like immunosuppressant drugs, and that's just to make sure that this new immune system slowly takes grip rather than jumping right in and getting it all wrong. And I just realized I'm not wearing my hat. Ugh. Um, so yeah, that's for the most part all it is just a bunch of immunosuppressant drugs and some supplements and acyclovir, just a bunch of like regular meds, nothing for pain because there's really no pain involved. Just a constant fatigue for the most part. Um, I take like I had at any given time because I didn't have it as bad as most people, but Zofran and Compazine for nausea. But like I said, I got very lucky as I did not have a heck of a lot of nausea compared to the stories you hear about people going in and just busting a gut, giving back everything that they eat. Okie doke. Next question. Also, Morgan, how has it changed your perspective? Good question. A lot. You don't get really aggravated over the small things anymore. You just realize it's really just an immense waste of time to get bothered over the jackass driving 900 miles an hour on the highway and this, that, and the other thing. Though obviously every once in a while somebody does a little bit of something that startles you and suddenly you realize them cutting you off made you have to swerve, and then suddenly you're thinking like, like I've survived all this and then I just need some jackass on the highway to make it so that I die in a horrible car crash rather than cancer taking my life. But as I said, it gives you a good perspective and makes you really not worry the small stuff so much. That's for sure. Were you a religious person before the cancer? If not, since having cancer, have you had any flirtation with religion? Morgan. No, I never really was. I mean, when I was growing up, as most kids do, they end up, getting kind of tied into whatever their parents do. And I've always kind of had a really simplistic kind of outlook about, I get the usual thing like most people say is I'm spiritual. I'm not terribly religious. I'd like to think that there's more, but you just can't help but think that it seems like a pretty beyond our understanding. I would honestly say I'm probably agnostic, which most people say is just a lazy religion, if a religion at all, or a thought process, I guess is more what it is. So yeah, I think for the most part, I'm just kind of you fly by the seat of your pants and see where life gets you. I've always kind of believed that God put you on Earth, and then it's really kind of up to you to decide what you want to do from there on out. And for me, it's been this, that, and the other thing, and then suddenly cancer comes along, and a lot of people might be praising God for the things that go right in their life, and then swearing at him when things go wrong. For me, it's just kind of like, well, this is my break. It's not what I want, but it's what I have, unfortunately. And for that, I don't really get too upset. I don't really feel like blaming anybody. It's just bad luck of the bad bounce, I guess. Bad roll of the dice, however you want to put it. Okay, so I guess I just take that and slap it on here. Did you have a moment where you looked back at a particular incident and wished you had done something different? Of course. I mean, I've been doing that my whole life, so it's now is no different. I wish I had been more kind of, I don't know, I guess maybe to some extent wish I had just, when I was making my movie, I think that was one of the most rewarding and enjoyable times of my life, even though we had some dust up with me and the guys, and you get so sick of being around each other so much because we were living in the same house together and all the things we were doing. But ultimately, it's like a time in my life that I would like literally look at and say, this is pretty amazing. Probably one of the most highlights of my life, and I kind of wish I was just a tad more present in it at the time. I mean, I think I was to some extent, obviously, but not as much as I think I would have preferred. And there's a lot of things like um, screwing up the relationship with the love of my life. I think is probably one of the higher ones too. Um, to this day, after I don't know how many years of not being together, I still just get upset at myself for making just such a stupid mistake and then losing that in my life. Um, but again, I can't blame anybody but myself on that one. It was just, stupid. I was just being stupid. Not sure exactly what I was doing. Can only imagine, but I definitely don't know now because I don't remember my fucking breakfast. Never mind anything else of real importance. I guess arm number 2. So yeah, there's plenty of those moments in my life. It's probably as much as anybody else in theirs. Um, what advice would you give someone who is cancer-free and healthy? Continue to be that way. I mean, there's nothing you can do. Obviously, cancer hasn't even been decided on whether it's hereditary or what causes it for the most part. So, there's not much to say other than just live as healthy as you can. I used to walk a lot. I don't run because I'm a heavy guy and just not great for your legs. Last thing I need is to be a jogger. Then you get to a certain age and then realize you can't do it nearly as much as you once wanted to, and slowly but surely you end up with knee problems and so on and so forth. So, I guess okay, never mind. Yeah, I think just appreciate what you have at the particular time, and be glad that you don't have what I have. Though that sounds kind of woe is me, and that's not really my cup of tea or bag. Um, I guess that's really about it. What's your general mood like? Pretty good considering. I think I've been kind of given the understanding that for the most part, you don't um, you don't necessarily get to choose what's happening. So it's kind of this weird place you're put into where you're kind of left wondering a lot. So, an example, like I've learned that basically there's kind of a 3 camps you can be in these sort of situations, and that's you're currently in remission, you're an ever optimist, and it's never coming back. You're going to be fine. Which novel to be sure, but I don't know. It doesn't, not me. And then the other one is it's coming back, and what's the point? It's just going to be back and eventually claim my life anyway. That just, I am kind of a pessimist, but not that pessimist. I don't know what's going to happen, so I kind of just have this really, I hope it doesn't come back kind of attitude, but, I don't have much of a choice in the matter, so it either does or it doesn't. So I fall kind of in the middle of this, like, you're not really sure, what's going to happen, what's, next to come. And it's difficult when you're trying to live your life and you really just have no clue whatsoever what comes next. I'm kind of a planner type person, or I kind of like to know what's going on. I'm not a big fan of surprises and so forth. And it just would be so much easier to know, like, oh, well, you've got 5 years before it comes back, or actually 5 years would be too long. My understanding is that every year I go by, I get another like 10% chance that it'll never come back. So I'm at about 50% and 60% and 70% that until finally 100% it'll never come back. Another cancer can swoop in and get you, but not the one that you had, at least. Um, so I don't know. I guess it's just, for me, it's just kind of like that middle ground where you just um, you just don't know how to feel, because you're probably convinced that something may happen or something may not happen, but because of it, you just don't know what way to lean or what to think or what to feel or how to feel about your future or anything like that. So that's why a lot of people just start, oh, I've always wanted to go to so and so, or I've always wanted to do blankety blank, that kind of thing, because it's just easier to kind of think of what you may do rather than what you should be doing or can be doing, rather than just fulfilling some sort of desire, want. I mean, obviously it makes sense. Like, your life is effectively been put on hold, and what are you going to do? Well, why not do something that's something you've always wanted to do or always wanted to go to or whatever. But I don't know. It's interesting, to say the least, of thinking about how it's changed you in so many different ways. Okay. Oh, I see. I see. I was a little stumped there for a second. I was just like, how the hell does this attach? Snap on. Snap off. The snapper. What is chemo like? Is it better to be alone or to have company? Chemo is really effectively just tubes being hooked up to your body. For me, it was through my arms. Can't really see it anymore, thank goodness. But there's a little scar that's been there and will be there for the rest of my life, as to for, I should say, having a PICC line in my arm, which basically went like this all the way up into my heart. And for the most part, the only thing that really happens while you're there is you just have this kind of progressively getting more and more fatigued. I can't believe I didn't wear a hat. I look like a fucking idiot. This is me hoping that my hair can make a return, but I don't think it ever is again. Some people get alopecia, I guess, after it. I met a woman, nurse, that told me that she was wearing a kind of a nice scarf, skull rag kind of thing, and said she got alopecia after she got cancer, and this is going to be apparently my burden, so most likely I will have a shaved head for the rest of my life. I got a pretty decent shaped head, so I guess it's not too bad. I could be like this, kind of thing going on. Okay, so back to the point. So really the only thing you end up with is a kind of an inconvenience when it comes to having wires hooked up to you as you sleep, because I had 4 24-hour bags. I think it adds up to 96 hours straight of chemotherapy slowly being pumped through my system, and then I got to go home. So it was kind of a process of a week in the hospital, 5 days essentially in the hospital. Then I would go home for 2 weeks as I recuperated. Oddly enough, they give you just enough time to recuperate before they drag you back in again. And when they drag you back in, they just start the process again, obviously. And that's how you kind of make just enough progress in the healing department to go back in. Excuse me, but at the same time, constantly just barraging your insides with chemicals. And the chemicals basically target fast-growing cells, which cancer is. So other things will get affected by it. Hair follicles, um, taste buds, eyes. I guess there's a lot of new cell growth all the time in your eyes, and because of that, unfortunately, my eyes are not as good as they used to be. So that's not great. I wear my glasses. I only used to wear them every once in a while for driving, and really didn't need them. He basically gave them to me with the idea saying, like, if you kind of like to have them just to be able to see a little bit clearer, but you have, eyes that are considered to be, um, you know, good enough. And I got them, and now I'm glad I did because I use them just to watch television because my TV is so far away from my bed where I sleep or where I sit on the couch. Um, just making sure I got everything going on here. It looks like I do. It's funky. Not sure what I'm building here. Oh yeah, I do. Yeah, it's basically not a big deal until like you go home and then suddenly you're off of the steroid that was kind of keeping you afloat so well while you were in the hospital. So you get, and I was getting tons of it, and it makes me wonder now because like I was on, like 40 milligrams at Yale, and they were wanting to slowly take me off of it at Yale, and yet at UConn, I was getting somewhere in the ballpark of nearly 300 milligrams while I was in the hospital, and then as soon as I go home, I got none. So, a week on of tons of steroids, and then go home for absolutely none. So no wonder I was crashing so hard when I got home. Um, Again, just kind of weird. As far as alone or company, I'm kind of an alone sort of person anyway. So, uh, but I mean, obviously, it's always wonderful to have friends and family stop in and say hi and just be there. And then there's times where it just kind of like nothing you want better than just to be completely alone and not not having to deal with anybody, not having to deal with the questions, not having to this, that, or the other thing. I've heard nurses can be bullies, and I've heard they're saints, which was your experience. Um, I think most nurses are saints. Even my bad story, which I will give here, is somebody just basically following the rules and not knowing if they can be flexible or who to talk to be flexible. So my issue was, and again, I can't say anything more about how awesome my nurses were at both UConn and at Yale. At UConn, I didn't have any issues whatsoever. At Yale, I had one, and it turned out to be something that ultimately someone said, you don't have to take it quite so literally, and it ultimately went away. But at one point, my my blood pressure was pretty low. I don't think I had fallen, but they definitely knew that at times they'd be there. If I got up, they could see me kind of have a little bit of a stumble as I tried to kind of piece together my balance, something that I still to this point don't really have, which is awesome. And I had to go to the bathroom, and at one point they kind of put me on this sort of bed alarm situation where next thing I know I'm every time I get out of my bed because I had to go to the bathroom, the alarm would go off. And now one of the other things was that at one point I was able to just go to the bathroom into little I forget what they refer to them as, but like these little bottles. Since I'm a guy, I can get lucky in that regard at least, and as if we're not lucky in a lot of other regards. And that's not it. So obviously, when I would even sometimes lean to go to the bathroom, it would shift enough of the weight in the bed that it would set off an alarm. So even when like I was doing my best at the time to do whatever, they would still know about it, come, darting in and just to make sure that I'm fine and blah, blah, blah. And then this one nurse I had was like, you're going to need to, go to the bathroom, and I'm just going to stand here. The door's wide open and I'm supposed to take a dump, because forget what it's called now, but there's something that I guess you can get from being in the hospital that this basically leads to this level of diarrhea that's like really, 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 really bad. And if you end up having it, you can't take. Can you not take steroids? Or I forget what it is, but they're supposed to. If you end up with it, it's not going to be that big of a deal as long as they stop you taking like Imodium and stuff, because it's not helping, or it's going to cause more issues or something. I can't remember, but regardless, she just needed to stand there, and I'm just like, look, this isn't going to happen. This isn't how I function. And it was like basically a non-argument for her. It was just like, well, I have to do this. Well, I'm like, I'm not going to be able to do anything if you are going to insist on standing there. So let's just move on with our lives, and I will hold in my defecation for the rest of my life. Over there, huh? That's weird. Sorry about the tongue sticking out apart. That's kind of interesting. He's got perpetual bent arms. So, like, then we just got into this argument about how I have, severe social anxiety. I'm not going to be able to take a crap with her standing there, or any form of bathroom, really. And she's like, well, how about I just, like, close the door slightly? And I'm like, that's not how this works. You could stand outside the door with your back, or no, it was first turn your back to the door. And I'm just like, oh, God, you can't be serious. It's pretty cool looking. And she obviously was very serious. And I'm like, well, this isn't going to work. She said, well, how about I close the door? And I'm like, I still know you're just standing right there. But, and I think ultimately that may be what it was, or she stood over by my bed or something like that ultimately. But it was just like this back and forth of how, like, we couldn't, like, I couldn't be given any privacy. I'm like, well, I'm on the bowl at this point, like, or at least that was going to be the understanding. I would be on the bowl, then you can go, piss off to wherever, and I can, take care of business, so to speak. But finally, after, I don't know how long, her, like, superior said, oh, no, it's not a big deal. Once he's down, that's the hardest part, and he'll be able to take it from there. And I did. But again, I know it was her, and she, a lot of them were very young, like really young. And ultimately led to me just being like, well, okay, I get it, she's just doing her job, but it still was just not the greatest of situations for me. So for the most part, other than that one woman, that was my experience was a positive one. It was quite positive, actually. Let's put these in here real quick. These dumb noises. Condos. Am I right, folks? Condos. Oh, that was in fact the case. Let's see here, right there, and that brings me to yes. Mr. The Salina Creek Cryptid, or the J Sarge, TESD Music Man, asks, are there things you want to do to feel like your old self? And then he kind of goes on with like getting a cat, or is there more of a not looking back philosophy that you embrace now that you are on the other side of it all? It's a very good question. And and there's definitely a desire to find normal again. Though normal has to be redefined, because if it isn't, it is completely going to drive you crazy, because you realize you can never reach that normal again. Excuse me, I'm sorry, my throat's been bugging me something fierce. Not bugging me, but giving me the weird sound. So things like, I thought about like running. I never was a runner, but I obviously feel like if I was ever in a situation where, let's say that does not do that. Oh, it's on this one. If like somebody screamed fire in a movie theater, I wouldn't be able to run. My weight, combined by the amount of like loss of feeling in my feet, to the atrophy of my muscles in my legs, has just left me where I'm at, unfortunately. It sucks for sure, but there's not much I can do about it. I can get mad about it, I guess, but again, what's the point? So that's one of those things. Getting a cat, as I'm sure many people have seen me debating. I'd always grown up having Siamese cats. My last cat, Pippin, was a Siamese cat. Just these, they're fantastic cats, and they get, cats in general, I think, get a bad rap, and then Siamese cats get even worse rap than other cats. I guess like that. Sure. Oh, it's looking pretty sharp here. And then this thing goes through the center. So there are certain things that I've looked at as kind of the markers of good health again. I haven't checked the red dot, but it is on. Thank goodness. So I don't know. I feel like being able to do anything I want whenever I want will be a big one, which I'm slowly getting closer to. They recently made it so that I only have to go in for photophoresis every other week, and I've been on the blood work every other week now for quite some time. Interesting. And that feels good. That was a really good day for me. I was feeling pretty snazzy, honestly. Really, that's it. That's something I probably have to revisit, to be honest with you, too. I feel like in general, it's one of those. Over time, you start to realize, like, kind of the things that you really look towards to be normal again. Being able to cook again was a milestone. Being able to like go on a walk that was like a mile long. I'm getting up to 2 miles on a more consistent basis. I used to walk 3, so that'll be another, big stepping point for me. So these little smaller ones that you have to kind of set your sights on, rather than going after these, more bigly ideas in your head. And there is a little philosophy change as well. I mean, you start off thinking a lot about all the things that you can do or will do, and then over time you start to realize the kind of new limitations that are set upon you, and you really kind of settle in with the idea that that's probably not going to be a reality for a long time, and then therefore setting your sights on it is probably not a great idea, only because you're just going to make it so that you never reach them, or you don't reach them for ages. Oh, I guess it goes like that. Okay. Those come out of his hands. Attach there. Um, but now we're on to Sue Kent Ant, and it's Sue Kent Ant at Sue Kent Ant. Also, hold on a second. I just realized I did a disservice to somebody here. The last question was chemo like, and about the nurses. That was Hemel at Hemel100 on Twitter. So thank you for the question as well. But you could read a cereal box and sound like magic, buddy. Read, listen. Okay, well, I appreciate that. Traveling together. Life is full of beautiful moments. No matter the destination, traveling together as a family is always fun. Fill in the blanks below to complete your very own road trip story. And then it's like a Mad Libs thing that's going on here. Grab your, and you guys can follow along, grab your noun and hop in the noun. We're off to explore noun, and we can't be late. Get ready to verb and verb along the way. Maybe we will get to see a adjective noun, or even some adjective plural noun. Nothing beats an adjective family. Road trip adventure. And then the license plate Cinnamon Life. The daughter looks kind of thug. So there you go. Thank you. Sue Kent Ant. Sue Kent Ant. It's not easy to say. Next one's from Marsha at Miss MS MG Black 70. Oh, stop pressing the wrong button. How has this impacted you financially? Do people treat you differently than they have in the past because of your illness, depression, more or less or the same? There's three questions. I kind of ran those two together. We'll start with how it's impacted me financially. That is the big thing. It has impacted me financially a lot. I ran out of my own savings, which was not much, let's be honest, a long time ago. And I've become basically a dependent of my parents, living about 1,200, 1,300 miles away. It's awful feeling. You feel like less of a person because you're an adult, 47 years, and you aren't able to provide for yourself. So it doesn't feel good because my parents have worked hard their whole lives and they've earned the retirement that they have, and they deserve to be spending it however they see fit. What the hell? So for me to be taking any of it is awful. What? Why? Why does that go there? Okay, whatever. It's pretty. Actually, and this probably harkens back to what J. Sarge was asking. That would be another thing. I hadn't even thought about it until now, but that would be definitely another thing that make me feel normal again. Is being able to provide for myself rather than leech off of somebody else who has deservedly gets that money rather than me, who. And, you know, obviously parents would always say, like, you know, it's an opportunity for me to help you, and I earn that money to do whatever I want with it. And they're not wrong, but obviously it doesn't feel great either way when you want to just let them have their life and you have yours. It's demoralizing is what it really is, ultimately. I want to be financially secure, and I want to be in a situation where I'm taking care of myself and not other people. And family have been very generous, obviously, but the problem is every month I get my check from Social Security Disability, and the amount I get from them is equal to my rent, and that's it. So I can afford to pay rent every month, and then that's it. I can't feed myself. I can't pay for my cell phone bill. I can't pay for car insurance. I can't pay for food. I can't pay for whatever things I need. And admittedly, I've spent some money on stupid things, or what people would consider stupid things at times, but you know, you kind of want to feel that. That's part of feeling normal too, is being able to get something that you've had your eye on for a while or whatever. Is it a good choice? Probably not, but you know, my choice nonetheless, I guess. Um, so, yeah, it isn't great. And the problem you run into eventually is that they move you off of what you're on as far as insurance is concerned, which was Husky D in Connecticut, which, you know, God bless Connecticut because they took very good care of me. I can't be any more. Well, here I'm saying God bless after what I said earlier. But I couldn't be in the position I am now if it wasn't for the comprehensive health care that they have. Connecticut taxes the hell out of you, but they will take very good care of you if you do not have the ability to do so. And I definitely did not have the ability to do so. Put him in there real quick. I guess that's it. Pretty badass. I do like me some Legos. One of the problems I've run into recently is I've really wanted to go back to work. And I always, you know, you hear stories, especially nowadays with all the stuff going on in Washington, pre-existing conditions and all this other stuff that's going on, and you're kind of like, well, everyone thinks that people just take advantage of the system. That's all people do, is take advantage of the system. I want to go back to work. I want to make money. I want to be self-sufficient. All these things. And I can't go back to work if I wanted to. And I do, as I said. And I guess it's easy for somebody to say I want to, and oh, I want to, I really do. But I genuinely do want to go back to work, and I can't because I get a procedure that's like $8,000 to $10,000 every other week now. It was every week then, but every other week now, and somewhere in the ballpark of probably $300 to $500 worth of blood work every other week as well. So I go back to work. I can only make $1,000 a month because if I make more, they'll take me off of Social Security disability, which I could probably make more because I was good at my job and they liked me at my work, and I could definitely do that. The problem with that then is that I have to insure myself, which means I have to pay, you know, probably anywhere from $130 to $160 a month. And then I have co-pays and deductibles, and I will definitely be up against a deductible immediately because obviously a $10,000 procedure. And then on top of that, like I said, they're trying to make it so that you're not, like they can judge things on pre-existing conditions and so forth. And obviously cancer is a very pre-existing condition. So you're kind of left just kind of scratching your head. And if I go back to work, I would probably end up having to take more money from my parents because I definitely wouldn't be making enough money to take care of it. I wasn't making a lot, but it was a rewarding job, the first rewarding job in my entire life. So I don't know. It's an awful catch-22 to be stuck in. I wish there was something I could do about it, but there really isn't. Do people treat you differently? Was the other question. Yeah, if they know and they don't know me well, then yes. And at first, my friends definitely did, and my family definitely did. But I think after a while, they start to realize that you are who you are, and you get treated differently for a little bit. But then suddenly, after a while, it's just like, oh, it's just Joffrey. He's just got cancer or whatever. And my grandmother's probably the only one that kind of still adheres to some kind of a weird, whenever she calls me, oh, you sound great, you're gonna do great, you're gonna, almost kind of reassuring herself more than even reassuring me, which honestly is fine. She's 95 years old and she does not want her grandson disappearing before she does. So they do, but after a little while, people start to realize that you don't want to be treated differently. There might be moments where you kind of like pull out the card yourself, and it's a little not the right thing to do, but you do it anyway. Situation, but that's about it. Depression, more or less the same. It's pretty much the same. I sleep a lot more, which is usually tied to depression. I don't necessarily feel depressed, but I definitely have like the symptoms of depression. But I mean, it's mostly just because I'm in such a pinned position. I can't do anything to get out of it, and that's what gets depressing. You want to feel like there's an opportunity to break out of your situation, and every direction you look, it just does not make you feel like you have any choices whatsoever. And that's also part of my controlling side of things. I don't like surprises because I like to know about them. I like to be able to set my pace. I like to be able to pick my day. I like to be able to set out my criteria for the day and all that kind of stuff. I'm just very structured. I need that because I have pretty bad ADHD, and it's just it's hard to feel like it's all kind of out of your control. And that's really what cancer is. And thank you to Marsha for that. Keith, and I kind of went over this one, skipped it over. I think also Morgan had mentioned it earlier, but I'm kind of left it for Keith here. Keith, or at KFreezy123, has it affected your libido? Enormously. Ever had a hot moment with a nurse? Sadly, no, but nothing would have happened anyway. What's the best thing to watch at a hospital? Anything. I brought a PlayStation 4, a television, and a sound bar, also I could have a very home-like experience while I was in the hospital, and watched Netflix and played games, and then watched television and watched this. I mean, just about anything I could do to pass the time. Watched Parks and Rec for the second time through, or third time, I don't even know, many time through. Watched like Daredevil again, as everybody knows I'm a huge Daredevil fan. How do you cure boredom at the hospital? By doing that. What's the worst thing to throw up? Anything acidic. So like orange juice. I didn't throw up much, as I specified earlier, but that's definitely not a great one. Best thing to do at a hospital that no one knows about? I have no fucking clue, because at Yale, I was allowed to leave my room but not the floor, and at UConn, I was allowed to leave my room but not the floor, and at Yale, I was allowed to do nothing. I couldn't leave my room. So you're just stuck in a room the whole time. So I have no idea. I can tell you it's definitely not radiation treatments, and I can tell you it's not. That's the only thing I ever left my room for. I think maybe an X-ray or two. Who is your favorite coach and why Ditka? As you know from the episode I was on, I am a Bears fan, as a Chicago fan in general. So Bears, Ditka, sausage, heart attacks, the Bears. Thank you. And then join to follow. At the procedures and meds, does the plumbing still work? Oh no, that was who asked that same thing. And still, no. At joined to follow, if I didn't say that, but I think I did. Nope. I mean, I know. I mean, I'm sure if I was really trying to drive towards something, I could make something happen, so to speak. But nothing really causes it to react without like some prompting, which sounds so fucking weird. I think, whatever. So there we have it. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the questions. Thank you very much for the questions, and hopefully, maybe we'll get even more people next time. Um, uh, the only thing I would impart is that you hear it often in movies and you hear it in television. Um, Cancer takes over your life, and there is unfortunately no truer adage that I've heard in my entire life than that. It sucks, big ones. Not that everybody didn't know that, but it's the fact that like even when you start to get better, when you have a nasty cancer, and I'm going to take a moment to reference Mr. Wimmer on Twitter, who's we both had lymphoma. He had a B cell lymphoma. I had a T cell lymphoma. You know, recently I found out that he didn't even have the ability to taste anything anymore, and or taste much of anything anymore, or everything's tainted. I can't remember which because I can't remember anything. And I don't have that issue. I've got a terrible taste in my mouth most of the time when I don't have a candy in there or a mint or something, but it affects people differently. Now, B cell is very different than a T cell. His is very curable, and mine is very, like I said, I don't even know. I probably said that in a previous recording. It's like a flip of a coin. It's 50-50%. But no matter what, it affects your life. He may not have had as high a mortality rate as mine, but he may, for the rest of his life, never taste things the same way he ever did again. Last I knew, he was having an issue with temperature. He wasn't like regulating temperature very well anymore, and that can be a problem too. Thankfully, I've gotten back to it. It's only like 65 degrees in here, and I got my t-shirt on, and I'm fine. But cancer just destroys everything that you had going on for you in your life, and that's one thing I wish people would just understand is like, like even after it's gone, when you're in remission, or even when it's been declared that you will never be back again, it's always something that lives in your head at that point. You're confronted by mortality, and that's just never fun. So, don't get it if you can avoid it. Unfortunately, nobody knows how we get it, so it doesn't really matter, I guess. But thank you again to everybody for sending in these questions, and I will be putting together another one relatively soon, and I'll post out another thing for questions and about anything, any form of cancer. I'll do the research ahead of time. I will, whatever. I'll try to think of some anecdotes, I guess, as well during the time. But I just want to thank you for joining me, and I will see you next time. Take care.